Hi, my name is Toni-Marie Achilli, and I'm a lecturer in molecular pharmacology, physiology, and biotechnology. Over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to work with the Swearer Center after having a course that was labeled as a community engagement project. Luckily, I had many students that worked on this project with me, two of which we have here today with us.
Hi, I'm Isaiah Dawkins. I'm a sophomore concentrating in neuroscience, and I'm a co-founder of Brown Moose Immunity.
Hi, my name is Roshan Sapkota. I'm concentrating in public health. I'm also a sophomore, and I'm also one of the co-founders of Brown Boost Immunity. Um, I would just start off with saying that Brown Boost Immunity kind of came to fruition during the middle of the pandemic when we were kind of stressed out about, vaccine development and kind of the public's perception of the vaccines. And that's really how we kind of this campaign grew. We actually were all in a course. We were all in Professor Achilli's course, Biotech and Medicine, in the fall semester, and I think it was one of the lectures. I forget which lecture, Isaiah, but I think it was after the vaccines lecture that Isaiah and I decided to stay after class for a little bit, and Professor Achilli holds office hours then. And I think I asked something completely unrelated about vaccines. I think it was in one of the readings, it called for a need for combating vaccine hesitancy and how that's on the rise as of late. And I was just kind of thinking, with my public health background, what has been one of the most successful public health campaigns? And I really always just thought of the smoking campaigns and the anti-smoking campaigns and how effective those were. And so I asked a simple question to Professor Chile. I was like, oh, what lessons can we learn from the anti-smoking campaigns and apply them to the vaccine hesitancy movement? And I think she was just told me about this grant that there was at the Swearer Center, and she was like, do you want to apply? And I was like, I have no idea what we're about to do, but Isaiah was there. We were having a conversation about this, and I think Repka, another co-founder, was there, a TA for the course, and the application was due like that weekend. And yeah, I think we were just super passionate about starting something. We didn't know what it was going to be. We thought it was just going to be like a little project, but we didn't think it was going to be a big organization like this. So Isaiah, do you remember
Yeah,
that
I always
specific?
describe like my experience with the start of Brown Moose Immunity as me being there at the right place at the right time, because it wasn't every class that I stayed after. So
Exactly.
the fact that it was so coincidental that both of us stayed after class, and it was during the vaccines lecture, that it was just the perfect timing for this to come up. Um, and I've always had an interest in like vaccine hesitancy and why that's so prevalent in today's society. So being able to discuss with a professor about it, and then for Professor Chile to be so encouraging to start up a project like this was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, it's
It was,
interesting because when the pandemic started, right, and before Bio 170 started, I was just concerned with how we were going to transition to online and build community within the class. But to see how many students were so engaged like you guys were, that really gave us like so much motivation to really make sure you were getting everything out of it that you possibly could. So while I was worried about building community in the course, and of course with this overarching pandemic, thinking about ways that we could contribute to that. When you guys had such drive, it just was a really natural collaboration for us to start working together. So by no means did I ever think that we were going to get started with this, but the impact that Brown Boost Immunity has already made, it really became like the most rewarding part of the semester. So we could see the changes that are happening right now.
I
yeah.
totally agree, because when we were being sent back a year ago, it was so discouraging and disheartening that we didn't have the full first year, Roshan and I, of our college experience. So being sent home, it was kind of a letdown in some sense, to say I'm being separated from what I want to do in person. So the fact that even though Roshan and I are still both remote, we have been able to produce such an impactful campaign despite us not being on campus.
Yeah. And just to add on to that is like, I do some work with the Swear Center as a Bonner Fellow as well. And like the reason that I really love Brown is that it encourages community engagement, right? And so when the pandemic did, happen and we were all sent home, like a lot of the work at the Bonner Fellows was kind of cut. And so going into the fall semester, I was like, oh shoot, I only have, my academic course load. That's it. It seems like a pretty boring semester. And then November came, and then it's been a roller coaster ever since. But yeah.
Roller coaster is one way to describe it. There's certainly been like a lot of wins, a lot of challenges that we've gone through together, but all throughout it, we've certainly worked together as a team. What do you guys think were the biggest wins and the biggest challenges that we've had so far that really have started to like make us build some momentum?
Well, I definitely think our campaign being created at the same time that COVID was coming up and the pandemic was developing and the vaccine was developing, one of the major challenges that we definitely faced was getting new information as it came. We didn't have such in-depth knowledge of what was going to occur with the COVID vaccine, with the pandemic itself. So I definitely think that kind of allowed us to grow with the pandemic itself.
Yeah. And kind of, I think for me, I've been in a lot of dance teams before, so I kind of relate like creating organizations to like a dance team. And one of the things that you really need to establish in any team is like a team dynamic and just some like chemistry, right? But with like for instance, like Professor Shilley, we have never met you. We have never met Repka, the other co-founder. We've never met, I don't think, anyone in the group independent study project. So I think like establishing that dynamic was really strange because we had to do it through like virtual means. And so for me, that was really challenging because I couldn't really assess, like who's going to take on what responsibility. It just kind of felt very all over the place. But I think we overcame that challenge by really communicating well. I think we always, communicate really efficiently with like the group chat, and we always set up time to meet, just us four. Yeah, and I think that communication of just like really just being open with each other has really helped us get through that hurdle, because I can see right now, like I'm in a dance team at Brown, and like it's really stagnant just because like people just have forgotten about the dance team, right? But I think that's because they haven't communicated. They don't even realize the dance team is still a thing, but I think we've been able to overcome that. So that's great.
I think it speaks a lot to the way the leaders that you guys have become, because we very quickly got the entire class, right? Over 120 students involved in this project at a very cursory level. Everybody got to participate to the level that they wanted to. But what we were able to do is to build enough interest within that class that we were able to get a really committed group. And that's something that I've perhaps been most proud of, is the way that your leadership really has brought together a bunch of people who were committed to making a difference in the community and doing so at a really important time. And I don't think that can be said for all groups, as you just mentioned with your dance team. It takes a level of commitment, not just of the three of us, the four of us, including Rebka, but of the members that are really doing the work as well. So that's been great to see that the commitment isn't just with the leadership, but it is with everybody who's been involved with us.
Yeah, and I would say that's like one of the biggest wins. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is like, obviously the creation of the group independent study project was huge for our campaign, but even in the midst of creating that, we were still a little like scared that the group independent study project would morph into something that the campaign did not intend for it to, right? But I think it's just really just has served as a great tool for us to really collaborate and really connect with the other 15 members and getting them all engaged. And really I can approach anyone in that group independent study project as someone who like I know and treat as a friend, even though I've not met them in like person, which I think irrespective of the campaign, I think that's huge. Like creating relationships in the midst of a pandemic is huge. And so, yeah, I think that's been one of my biggest wins. What about you, Isaiah?
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I think what we can attest to is that although the pandemic has been such a hindrance on schooling, academics, and society in general, our campaign has thrived remotely, and it doesn't depend on in-person interactions, which we have been just talking about. And I think that's great to hear, and I think it's something that other groups can look at with our campaign and take that as motivation to keep on going despite these challenges. And then I wanted to add that I think it really shows our passion for Brown University itself and for Rhode Island, despite us only being there for probably a semester and a half, and we haven't been there for over a year. So I think it's great to see that we do have such a love for where we go to school, that we want to be able to ensure that vaccine hesitancy is limited and that vaccine uptake is as common as possible.
And I think it really speaks to a lot to Brown's mission as well, right? A lot with the open curriculum too, because if you think about our group, very much so you could think of, yes, there are probably some, people interested in biotech or biology, maybe somebody interested in public health, a few people, but we actually have a wide spectrum of individuals, people interested in graphic design. I think Patrick was interested in sociology, perhaps concentrating in that, a neuroscience. So we definitely showed how we can really come together as a group with that interdisciplinary mind, because we're allowed to have the flexibility that we need to. And I think that everybody with their specific skill sets coming together was the only way that we could even dream to be successful. So we owe a lot to that, the mission of Brown as well.
I was just going to add on, sorry, I was muted, that yeah, in public health, something that is so key to any public health campaign, is really making sure that you have an interdisciplinary approach. And it just kind of naturally happened with the open curriculum and with the students at Brown, and with the Group Independent Study Project. Anyone could sign up for it. You didn't have to be a certain concentrator or, only a public health major, which was super nice, because then you did get those graphic design people, the web design people, people who, have a unique experience and perspective about vaccine hesitancy that maybe a public health concentrator like myself doesn't know about, which, combating something as complex and nuanced as vaccine hesitancy is going to take that interdisciplinary approach. So I think that's great. I also had a question for, this is for Isaiah, but because Isaiah and I have known each other, I guess, since we started at Brown, we lived in the same floor, and we actually were like together when the whole news, happened that we were going home. And I was wondering, Isaiah, if you could like tell your March 2020 self anything, like what would it be looking back?
Yeah, I love that question, because being a freshman at Brown, it's so new, it's intimidating, and I really do feel like I was kind of, I don't know, I think it was hard for me to adapt to the environment. So I was trying to get involved with as many clubs as possible, see what I can, what interests me really. So looking at me now, being so passionate about Brown Boost Immunity and being in such a good place academically, I would tell myself a year ago that you will find a solid place, a solid group of people that you will be working with. You will have a passion for something. Whatever it is, something will work out. I think that's probably a good message for all three of us.
Yeah, I agree. I think when the pandemic hit, I think we got like 2 spring breaks, right? Like 2 weeks, or like we were off. And I had taken both of those weeks off. I didn't do any work whatsoever. And I was like, during like that pandemic time, like when it just hit, I was really, really nervous about, oh shoot, I just wasted this time. I should be, and just during the pandemic itself, like irrespective of those 2 weeks, like I was like, I'm not utilizing my time well. You know, I'm not doing anything that I had hoped and imagined that I would do at Brown. But I would just tell myself to relax and calm and be quiet and keep on going to those office hours
Right.
at biotech. And yeah, and I would just reassure myself that like, as long as you intend to make a purpose or like to have a purpose and to make a change, that like Brown, and at least speaking for myself, the Swear Center has the resources and has the connections for you to make that. You just have to have the intention and reach out to people. And I think that's been a valuable lesson that could have helped me like ease my mind. What about you, Professor Chili? I don't know. We didn't really know each other, but how were you during that
We
time?
didn't know each other at all. I mean, so at that point, I was teaching the courses that I'm currently teaching, right? That are two lab-based courses. So I knew that things were going to be drastically different for those students. And I guess something that I stressed about from that moment to, the end of biotech was making sure that I was able to provide students with meaningful opportunities. And at first, like it took like hyper planning, like it's all I could focus on. And I guess based on what you're saying, and I think it's really similar, is sometimes you don't have to plan everything, right? When you have people together that are like minded, that have a purpose, that have an intent, that things come naturally and you can really build on those. So I think, if anything, in terms of the whole pandemic, maybe we've learned to be flexible, but also to make the best of the opportunities as they come. And everything doesn't have to be planned out perfectly. Um, it's hard in the moment, right? It's really hard in the moment to see those things. But it is interesting how something that's been the most rewarding part for me in the past months is something that I could have never planned or thought of. So I think like just a life lesson is, things work out, just have the right purpose in mind.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think we have brought up a couple of our accomplishments with Brown Boost Community with the starting of our group independent study, our social medias. But do we want to talk about that a little bit more specifically? Maybe Roshan, do you want to talk about like our social media presence?
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of just what I've been most excited about or proud of, I guess, in the past like weeks, I guess, is that we've kind of transitioned into a campaign that like people reach out to now. I think previously, like November, December, January, when we were really like establishing who we were, we really had to reach out to, like the Department of Health and really reach out to community leaders to really make a name for ourselves. But I think we've gotten to a point where we've made such impactful change in the clinics and, um, and such a great social media presence that like now people come to us for expressing their interest in our campaign. And I think it was just like a couple of weeks ago, or actually this week, that some random clinics that we had never talked to said, we're interested in your campaign, we would really love to collaborate. Or there's more conversations happening in our Instagram account of like volunteers wanting to volunteer at a COVID clinic, or a person who wants to get vaccinated wants some information and trusts us to supply that information to them, right? So I think like just that like transition from like kind of like a stagnant campaign of like we're just really trying to make something happen to now where it's like people really see us as like I think Isaiah, we had talked about this before, but like people actually see us as a serious public health campaign now in the state of Rhode Island, which I think that is something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I think our campaign, there's so many aspects to it that go much further than just disseminating vaccine information. So we do have our website that is the landing page for all of our vaccine information. And then we have our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, where we have these different types of posts where we can highlight testimonials, we can provide educational materials, we can engage with our audience. And then we have our community outreach where we go out to clinics across Rhode Island, and we're distributing stickers that our graphic design team has produced that allow for the Rhode Island community to show their pride in getting the COVID vaccine. So the stickers themselves say "RI vaccinated," which is super clever, and it's so nice to see how it's really bringing the community together through vaccinations.
I think a cool part about that is like originally when we were dreaming about this and thinking about this, we were trying to think who is that one community partner that can really help achieve some of the goals that we'd like to. And what I really saw the campaign do is like instead of having just one strong connection, it truly made many community partners, right? So like we've had these interactions with Rhode Island Department of Health that have helped us. We've had interactions with the governor, with mayors, with chief of polices, but the community members themselves as well. So I think really seeing at so many different levels, the way that we've been able to have that impact has been important. We don't have that single partner, but certainly by getting out there, we have the social media presence, but being at the clinic, we have this different community presence. And I think that's what really brings it all together is having these different aspects that have come together so nicely.
I totally agree. So what are we thinking we want to accomplish in the future with our campaign? I know we've done so much in the present, and the COVID pandemic is still very present. The COVID vaccine is still being distributed. It will be distributed to new groups of people. So what do we want to accomplish in the future?
I mean, just speaking for myself, I think it's kind of funny that this question is being asked because we've been talking about this like just this past week, and it's been really at the forefront of our minds because, of the end of the semester coming. But obviously expanding on our work, I think we had just gotten back from the wellness company that we're in probably over like 100 clinics. Which, that's amazing. And, just expanding upon that, but also realizing that COVID and the pandemic is an evolving issue, and that people right now are starting to get vaccinated. But I think we had talked about like this phase 3 of our campaign where we need to really adapt to the concerns of the population. And that probably is going to be, younger kids getting vaccinated. And that's probably going to be a bigger challenge for us because we've seen that vaccine hesitancy, especially, is more prevalent in parents and parents not wanting to get their kids vaccinated. And so really, I think there's a lot of work for us to do there. And again, like something to point out is our campaign came to fruition when there was no COVID vaccine. So it was just focused on vaccines in general. And, that goes for the yearly influenza shot, the MMR vaccines. Like it was an issue before the pandemic, and it was a pressing issue. I think the World Health Organization said it was like the top 10 most pressing public health issues. And so I sometimes get like disheartened that like, oh, maybe brown boost immunity is coming to an end because more people are getting vaccinated. And it's like, no, this work is still applicable irrespective of the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to that transitioning into, of course, outreaching to parents and also to hopefully when this COVID pandemic dies down to other vaccines as well.
What about you, Isaiah? What are you looking forward to?
I'm very excited for the future of brown boost immunity. I think I look forward to the end of the COVID pandemic, but that doesn't mean the end of brown boost immunity, since we did start out, as Roshan said, as a very general campaign for vaccines broadly. Then we shifted to the present needs of society, the COVID vaccine. And I really do think following the COVID pandemic, I do want to see us be able to go back to this broad campaigning, broad advocacy, because I still think vaccine hesitancy is going to be present as long as vaccines are a thing forever. So hopefully the Brown Boost Immunity campaign can act as a way to eliminate the vaccine hesitancy to almost a minimal to none. And I know this might sound corny, but our hashtag is hashtag vaccinate the ocean state. And I always dream that our campaign can become like hashtag vaccinate the United States. I think we do have the ability to expand nationwide rather than just focusing on Rhode Island. But I think we have a good start so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Sorry, go ahead, Professor Achilli.
I was going to say something I haven't talked to you guys about, but it's been floating in my mind and something that I think that we could do as well. When we chose the name, we didn't choose it intentionally to be broad, but Brown Boosts Immunity is a broad name, right? It doesn't say anything about vaccination. And certainly that's been our focus and our mission. But I imagine that we could expand that mission as well. As you know, right now, one of the classes I'm teaching is antibiotic resistance. And we talk about the antibiotic crisis as well in Biology 170 that you guys took. And I can imagine like having a campaign about antibiotic resistance as well and helping with immunity towards, other superbugs, not just like right now we're in a pandemic that certainly was viral. But if we could think about the crisis that we're having with, bacteria becoming resistant to antibiotics and not having successful antibiotics and being able to be a steward for that as well. I can imagine our campaign, Brown Boost Immunity, has some work to do there too.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I mean, we do label ourselves as a public health campaign, and we've read about so many public health campaigns. So vaccines are the start. And like you said, we can definitely expand to many different topics.
Yeah, I think, and it just speaks to I kind of like the philosophy of Brown Boost Immunity is that we're always adapting to the community's need. Like Isaiah had said, like, we had started on just like flu vaccines and stuff like that, but that didn't seem appropriate when the COVID vaccines were developed. And so we shifted our focus to the COVID vaccines. And then now we're going to shift our focus to, hopefully when the time comes, kids getting vaccinated and that type of area. But, that doesn't mean that that's always going to be a pressing issue that the community is concerned about. It could be, again, like Professor Achilli, you said, like the antibiotic resistance, like creation of those superbugs, that's very prevalent. And so yeah, I think it just encourages me more to keep on keep on working, and also that like our campaign is not so restrictive and constrained to just vaccines. Also, I was going to add that I'm looking forward to finally seeing everyone
Right.
in the future. That'd be fun. Yeah, no more Zoom meetings. That'd be amazing. And Isaiah and I haven't actually done any of like the community outreach stuff. We haven't even seen the educational materials or anything. And so just seeing that work physically would be amazing. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, we certainly have waited long enough. I'm ready to meet you guys.
Exactly.
I think this is a good moment to wrap things up. I don't know if you guys had any other comments, questions, concerns, I guess. I think
I'm thankful to you guys and everything you've done, and to the Swear Center for everything they've supported us with, because you guys really were the impetus for all this. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that it really was a student initiated project. You guys have taken it so far, and you've taught me so much about what Brown students can do when left to their own devices and their interests. So it really has impacted me, for a long time going forward.
And definitely working with you has showed that building a relationship with professors can be such a easy and beneficial thing in the lives of students, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would just say, like, when I first came into college, I was leaving behind a lot of the things that were really important to me in high school. Like, I used to sing and dance, and I used to be a part of the show choir. That was like a real big part of my identity, and like work that I was really interested in. And, you would wake up, you'd have to go to school, but you'd be looking forward to that one thing, that would get you through school. And I didn't have that in college. And so sometimes I would like, just wake up and be like, I gotta go to chem again. Like, and there would be nothing in my day that I would look forward to. But now there's like, our Sunday meetings where I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, hopefully establishing some collaboration so that we can further our work in Brown Boost Community. And it's just like, and the group independent study projects, like I look forward to those Monday meetings more than anything else. And so I guess, like, of course the work we're doing is great, but just having a community where like I look forward to engaging with you guys and just always just, working for a greater purpose is just really, really just an amazing experience. And obviously in the midst of a pandemic is really important as well. So thank you guys. And I think that's it.
Yeah, great point. I mean, I think this is a good place to plug our social medias and website. Our website is brownboostimmunity.org. Our Instagram is at brownboostimmunity, and our Facebook is also at brownboostimmunity.
Yeah, and if anyone would like to email us about any type of collaborations or just anything, our email address is brownboostimmunity@brown.edu.
Beating COVID-19 isn't a one-man job. Overcoming the pandemic takes many people from the community, all working together. Because at the end of the day, we are all in this together, and it starts with all of us choosing to protect one another by getting vaccinated. Every individual has a unique reason for getting their vaccine. Their stories matter. They inspire our community to take action. We look out for each other. That's how we get through this.
I think we need to emphasize the responsibility that we have both as individuals and as part of a societal effort to end the epidemic, that we all have to play a part in that. We've got to get that message out, that we are all in this together. And if we are going to contain this, we've got to contain it together.